Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Public Facilities, Arts and Culture Committee. Our chair, Bradford, is not feeling well, and so I, as the vice chair, am facilitating. There are two resolutions on our agenda. One of them has a letter to approve, and the other is a grant coming through, and I just wanted to see if anybody had any objections. We take them on consent. Okay, so I will read the caption, and I will do this if you don't mind. Okay. RS 2022-1383 approves an application for Tennessee Nonprofit Arts and Culture Recovery Fund from the Tennessee Arts Commission to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Nashville Arts Commission to provide general operating support of arts programs, research, and community engagement, with the letter to approve from Councilmember Allen. RS 2022-1389 accepts an in-kind grant from the Nature Conservancy to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to fund restoration and cleanup efforts at Lytle Bend Park. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion on either one of these resolutions? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any objections or abstentions? Okay. That concludes the business of this meeting. However, Councilmember Bradford has invited the folks from the Tennessee Arts Commission just to give us an update on their last meeting and the process forward. And we have Chair Jim Schmidt with us here today. Mr. Schmidt, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the Metro Council for your ongoing support of Metro Arts. I'm Jim Schmidt. I'm the chair of the Metro Arts Commission. Have been for this last 8 or 9 months or so. As y'all are aware, we have had a couple of HR complaints that have been delivered back to us. As far as the information from that, we received that information and have deliberated over it. We had a meeting in early January to talk about what had come out of those reports and the findings. We did a specially called meeting February 3rd, I believe it was, I guess it's a week ago, where we adopted 6 recommendations going forward for us to enact to hopefully rectify the situation and begin the process of pulling the staff back together, as well as reconciliation with the artist community and everybody else. What those included was hiring an additional DEI consultant to come in and work with the team. There has been ongoing efforts with HR and Ms. Blackman from Finance, who's been leading those conversations for several months now. We thought some additional resources would be helpful to that, and I think they are in agreement. And we're working with them on how to best implement that and get this person on board to come in and work with the team to get us back on the same page. We also, one of the recommendations out of the report was there was clearly some concerns about the utilization of performance improvement plans and the way those are utilized. I've asked a couple of our commissioners, as well as a member of our CARE team, which is our Committee for Anti-Racism and Equity Work, to work on a review of those, make sure they're utilized appropriately by staff and communicated appropriately to any employee who would be subject to one. So that will be an ongoing process. We also are undertaking a strategic planning process we've already hired a consultant to come in and do it. They luckily do have some experience in diversity and inclusion work, which I think will be helpful. So we have also recommended that work be wrapped in with that strategic planning process to make sure for the future of the Arts Commission that those issues are front and center, and we make sure that the working environment as well as the artist community is taken into consideration with that. So we are also going to have within 3 months a look back and a report back in from both HR as well as whoever the consultant is that we'll be bringing on to make sure that things are well under process and that we're doing the things we need to do better. So that's the latest from there. These are going to be ongoing conversations, I think, within the department to make sure that we're doing things appropriately. I know you all are probably aware Director Vincent is on medical leave for 2 months. And Ian Myers, is our Director of Finance, is helping things in the interim until she gets back. But this is going to be an ongoing process. The commission is very committed to rectifying the situation and making sure that all employees feel valued and are listened to. And going forward, we're gonna do better. So.
Thank you for that update. I was there last week, was able to go and hear the deliberation. One of the things that I found particularly enthusiastic about was the ongoing review. It's not just 3 months and okay, we're done, we check the boxes, we're out, but an ongoing every 3 months or even earlier if so determined.
I left out one more recommendation if I could too. One of the things that was clear in the report and recommended was that there's some additional ongoing management opportunities for training. And we're working with HR to see what Metro has currently that we might be able to access. And then if there's outside additional trainings that we need, then we're more than willing to put our staff and management through that.
And all of these recommendations that were approved by the Arts Commission are public and can be reviewed, and they can be held accountable to each of these recommendations independently as well as a whole, which I thought was great. And I'm hoping that this painful process that needed to happen can serve as a template for other departments to also use, is what I'm hoping. So, Councilmember Hurt.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and I also want to thank you for your initial outreach when things came to light and you immediately reached out, and everything that you're saying I really appreciate. But I also wonder if you've considered, because see, I'm a pet peeve about doing study after study after study and bringing in people from outside, because the people who are already here basically know the solutions and what can be done and how. Have you considered, instead of paying money to an outside DEI person to come in, because that was the reason that Ms. Blackman was hired and brought on, to use that as some restitution for those employees who were harmed by what may have occurred during that time. I don't necessarily think any of it was intentional, but it still hurt the same. And I think that if we take steps in order to try to rectify that, which you are doing, but it really does help when people can feel that they've gotten some restitution for some wrongdoing.
And I think that's something we can clearly discuss. Ms. Blackman and Rogel in HR, who's their diversity and equity person, they've been very intertwined in this work and will be probably with us for a good while, I think, going forward to get us in a better place. So I think it's something we can talk about. We have not talked about restitution in this case. And there are two other complaints that have been filed. Y'all may be aware of that. One from a current employee and then one from Director Vincent. So we are awaiting the results of those findings as well, because I think that hopefully will complete that process, and then we can truly know what we're looking at going forward.
And you know, I think that when we acknowledge, then that's 50% of it. You know, we acknowledge it and we can move forward and trying to do things that will help make things better. And I know that's what we all are looking to do, is make it better. But we cannot turn a blind eye to the things that actually did occur. And I do think that one of the employees may have settled with Metro government at some point in time. And because of that, it seems that, in my opinion, is admission that something was wrong.
And I don't want to get into all the facts. I think that one of the employees she had started the process, she decided not to. She actually did some contract work with the agency afterwards. The other employee decided she didn't go through that process. So, but she also was actually offered contract work as well. I don't know that the rates were what she thought it would be. So it's something we're taking very seriously. I appreciate your kind words about the outreach. I think it's important we're all a part of this process and make sure that we're being responsive.
Thank you for the update. I wanted just to give Ian a chance. you've got deadlines coming up for applications for funding. And if you want to just, I think it's the 10th of March, is that right?
Oh, gosh, I think, I don't actually know.
I'm on the spot.
Sorry, man. But the organizations in all the different tiers that receive funding from Metro Arts have their applications coming in now for review. The work at the commission continues at a steady pace. And we were saying at the beginning of this meeting, Ann and I known each other back from when I left BMI, back in 07 land. And so I know that no one knows more about the Metro Arts Commission than you do. And so I'm glad that you're here today. And if you have any other input in regard to this matter or other things at the commission, then we're happy to hear from you.
Thank you. I'm actually pulling up to see the specific date. Application deadline was actually February, that's pre-application, March 4th. And then,
Please make sure your arts organizations know that.
yeah,
We have sent out plenty of communications, I assure you.
March 4th is the pre-application final deadline. March 10th is the full core application or basic operating re-verification form. So those 2 dates are going to be the key for all the nonprofits.
Council members, on your desk in the main room is an update from the public library. So make sure and look at their annual report, as well as information about a library that may be in your district, so that you can hear more about what they're doing specifically. Parks is here as well. If you have any updates or any questions for us, I will note that we're going to have a Madison-wide community meeting on the 26th. That's the last Saturday of this month at 50 Forward to see the designs for the potential park behind the Madison Library. And so if you're watching this, or if you have people that live in the area or would utilize the area, please have them come. Did you have a question?
I was going to ask, I don't know, Mr. Syracuse, regarding the Greenways matter and the recent Greenways Commission. I didn't know if you could perhaps give just a brief update. I was not able to attend, but I thought it might be beneficial.
That's a good idea. Ultimately, the Greenways Commission decided to really not recommend any change at this time, but to look at it from a broader perspective of infrastructure, right? 30th anniversary of Greenways, not trying to single out any particular use as far as e-bikes go, but the request was that we ultimately need to do probably an infrastructure study, right? Are the greenways wide enough? Can we handle additional uses, that these kinds of things, as we know that greenways have become part of our transit infrastructure. So that was the recommendation, instead of just focusing on one use. But of course, the resolution called for a study of e-bikes. So within that, we did say, well, let's continue to study numbers of e-bikes and whatnot. But for right now, the recommendation was not to have any more regulation on e-bikes on the greenway.
What does that mean relative to the Parks Board? Because I would assume the Greenways Commission would recommend to the board, which would recommend to, so can you kind of speak to what that next step is?
So the Parks Board actually has to do something now. So we make a recommendation, and then the Parks Board has to handle two things. What action do they want to recommend to us, I guess, to be able to take? And then we have the B-Cycle contract coming up, and B-Cycle has requested to reopen their program basically in April. So we don't have the authority Greenways Commission didn't have an authority, of course, to do that. That has to go before the Parks Board as well. So those are the two things that are on, as far as the hot potatoes on the Parks Board.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I think the one thing that I would kind of ask or share, and just for the public's edification, and since the administration is here as well, that certainly B-Cycle is presently stationed primarily in kind of parks adjacent or greenway adjacent. But I think we've all talked about through all our various multimodal plans and so forth that, bike share to be successful needs to scale, and it kind of needs to get outside of its older footprint And I also think, Greenways might not feel as, kind of beleaguered or potentially concerned if they didn't think that the V-cycles are only gonna be on the greenways, right? Like, they need to be at, they need to be at libraries, they need to be at apartment communities, they need to be at other municipal, locations. So I guess, I'm hoping that, while I understand it absolutely is a part of this conversation, I hope we will kind of help it kind of break out from that, because I don't want it to get confined solely to the greenways
Sure.
conversation, because I think it has so much potential. So
Well, I think that
appreciate that.
we'll have an opportunity to revisit this contract because, right now it was under downtown partnership.
Right.
Basically, right?
Right.
So who's going to be a partner with? Is it gonna be NDOT and and Parks, or so?
Or is it Parks and Libraries,
or
or
is
is
it-
it
yeah.
just the
Or is it
city?
NDOT,
Or is it
just- yeah.
general
So I think
services?
that opportunity of redoing that contract will
Great.
bring up those conversations that are, yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate the update. Thank
Sure,
you.
absolutely.
Is there anything else? Well, thank you for a productive conversation, and that calls end of this meeting.
Thank you, Vice Chair.